Hello guys, and welcome to Conspiranoia. I thought I had invented a new portmanteau, but that word has been used at least once before as a song of that title or something. I was going to make this hangout about the assault on due process, but that will probably be the next one, if I live long enough. This is about, as I say, Conspiranoia. The Epstein case has just been as good as closed. Dan Bongino and Cash Patel and Pam Bondi are in agreement that there was no list as such, and that, there was all sorts of nonsense being spouted about this case. There's a woman, Tara Palmieri, who's been blabbering off about it a lot. Not everything she says is rubbish, but when she talks about Virginia Giuffre as being courageous, responsible for bringing these lowlife to justice, no, I mean, it's complete rubbish. Anyway, Conspiranoia. The first bit of conspiracy I'm going to discuss is Sean Combs, he's been acquitted of the major charges, but he's been convicted on 2 charges of soliciting prostitution or something like that, and remanded in custody until October. The more I look at that case, the more I think, and I said this at the beginning, his behaviour was utterly depraved. But depravity isn't a crime. You can argue that it should be. Isn't that long since homosexuality was a crime? 1967 in this country, the Wolfenden reforms. Now you've got schools, pervert school teachers and Marxist school teachers grooming kids, teaching them about very young kids, even at times nursery age kids, about anal sex, and you've got this trans insanity. I'll put a link below to my video, my documentary, Transanity. So what he was doing, I mean, it's just, please excuse the creaking desk as usual. The big thing is in the United States, prostitution is illegal, and they call it trafficking. Now, I mean, trafficking is, again, I'll put a link to my article, The 4 Narratives of Prostitution. But prostitution, the 4 narratives. Sex trafficking can mean anything. It means that a man pulls up at a car, prostitute gets in the car with him, they drive around the corner, she performs a sex act on him, she's been trafficked. It's a way of demonising admittedly sordid acts. I think this guy's looking at some prison time. I hope he doesn't get like 2 10-year sentences back to back. I think he's suffered enough. He's lost, and well, he's said to be worth $400 million. I don't think it's that much, but he was certainly wealthy beyond the dreams of avarice. But he's lost a lot of money for a lot of out-of-court settlements, expensive lawyers, plus a lot of his property and he's got property investments which have been leveraged, and he might even find himself facing money laundering charges for trying to save his money from. It's sad, really, because I mean, I don't recall ever hearing any of his music, and I'm not into that sort of music. But he's whatever he's done, he's paid a price. And he's going to pay a hefty price. Now, I'll just play this video, the one that's without sound. This is the one that brought him down, as it were. So I removed the sound for copyright reasons. As you can see, if you haven't seen it before, it's quite graphic. What is missing is context. It may be that he has a sort of apologised for it. He said it was inexcusable. He made a video to that effect. But you never know. You see something like that, you never know the context. I mean, she might have just ripped him off. For all you know, she might have stabbed somebody. You always got to see the full video and the context, because as I say, one picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, yeah, a video might be worth 1,000,000 words, but they might all be deceptive words. Having said that, that's what brought him down, and there's been no doubt a lot of false allegations made against him, not just sexual ones either. But I really don't believe there was a great conspiracy there, a RICO. Well, he's been found not guilty of RICO, so. Anyway, let's go to Epstein. Trump, 47, brought in Kash Patel as FBI director. Dan Bongino, former police officer and former Secret Service agent and a massive podcaster, brought him in as assistant director. And Pam Bondi as Attorney General. And one of the many things they'll be looking into is the Epstein case. Their conclusion is that Epstein did commit suicide. Bondi has come in for some stick about the so-called Epstein list. She said the list was on her desk. She said now that she's referring to the whole file, and there was no Epstein list as such. I tend to agree with that. Now, what is forgotten here, willfully a lot of the time, is Epstein wasn't a billionaire, but he was incredibly wealthy. People of that wealth it's a small circle, put it that way. Donald Trump was in that circle, and for many years they socialised. Epstein met many people. He met Bill Gates, all manner of rich people. The model Naomi Campbell, and all sorts of politicians, etc. And these people have all been basically they've been tarred with the same brush. If you knew Epstein, then you were a potential paedophile. They call him a paedophile. Tara Palmier calls him a paedophile. Jeffrey Epstein was not a paedophile, right? He was not a paedophile. He did not prey on prepubescent girls, or boys for that matter. What happened was, when he was living in Florida, he recruited, in Palm Beach, he recruited girls from mostly West Palm Beach to give him erotic massages. He paid them typically $200 for them. And they go back again and again and again, some of them. This went on for years, probably for maybe 10 or 11 years, until a woman found her daughter with, I think it was $200 or $400, and went to Palm Beach police, a 14-year-old daughter. Palm Beach police mounted a lengthy investigation. He was arrested, charged, and convicted, and he was given a very softball sentence. It's been said that the person who charged him, who was now a Trump associate, said, effectively, this is above my pay grade, or Epstein was with intelligence, working for the CIA or something. We have only his word for that. For all we know, Epstein may have given the guy a backhander. But he was required to register as a sex offender. He was charged with soliciting prostitution. Yeah, I know 14-year-old girls cannot be prostitutes. But I compare this, I will continue to compare it with the grooming gang scandal here, the rape gang scandal as it's called now. These girls, at the time, there was no allegations of sexual assault. Certainly not being raped. He was basically just massaged by them, and they were paid and they left and they came back, most of them. If you compare that with the rape gang scandal, in which girls, some younger than 14, were treated like mattresses, driven around all over the place, trafficked, raped by maybe a dozen men in one night. There's no comparison. What Epstein did and what Ghislaine Maxwell did warranted prison time, but in the UK he would have got maybe it was 7 or 8 years. I doubt, maybe not even that. She would have got less. You know, there's no comparison, and we've heard all this guff now about all the psychological damage they've suffered, yada yada yada. Some of that I go along with. Some of it. What I won't go along with is the idea that the late Virginia Giuffre was responsible for bringing him to book, and she was, as Tara Palmier says, some sort of heroine. No. Virginia Louise Roberts was bad from the day she was born. She was no victim of sexual abuse. I doubt very much either she was abused by her husband. He was the one who got a restraining order against her, don't forget. But it was claimed she was abused by a family friend or relative when she was young. Then she was born in California. She was moved with her parents or her father to Florida. She worked at Mar-a-Lago. She got a job at Mar-a-Lago. At the age of 16, she claimed she was recruited by Ghislaine for Epstein at 15, lies. She had a threesome with 2 teenage friends, accused them of drugging and raping her. She claimed to have been trafficked or abused by a guy before Epstein, a bloke named Eppinger, who was, I suppose you call him a pimp, but he was importing women from Eastern Europe for sexual purposes. Adult women, not children, not underage girls. She became a willing conspirator, co-conspirator, a trusted lieutenant of Epstein. She's admitted this. She's admitted it. She came to England with him. They went to, we're told, Tramp nightclub, and there was that meeting with Prince Andrew. When that photograph first came to light in 2011, I'm assuming it's genuine, right? I'm assuming it's genuine. When it came to light in 2011, there was a big interview with her in the Mail on Sunday. There was no suggestion that Duke did anything wrong, didn't have sex with him. Then years later, she sits down for an interview. I've been sexually abused by a member of the royal family. Not just an inconsistency, an outright lie. Nobody in the mainstream media took her up on that. They all went along with this grotesque lie. There may be 1 or 2 very slight exceptions. I think Piers Morgan may have been a little bit suspicious at one point, but the lie is gratuitous. She claimed to have been paid to have sex with Andrew and then forced to have sex with Andrew. She was 17 when she came to Britain. 17. The age of consent here is 16. So Andrew did nothing wrong. He did nothing illegal. You could argue about the morality of it. When I made one of my videos about the Prince Andrew lie, the thing I found was there was a homosexual primary school teacher in Wales who had a threesome with two 17-year-old boys. He was sacked. He sued for constructive dismissal or whatever, some sort of industrial tribunal, employment tribunal, and he got a massive payout. I mean, this is a guy who's corrupting teenage boys. Andrew did nothing wrong. She was an attractive 17-year-old at the time. Andrew, whether or not he had sex with her, and she told so many lies. At the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, she wasn't considered a reliable witness. Put it that way. She should have been figuratively in the dock with Ghislaine. She should have been a co-defendant. She admitted recruiting girls for him. She's admitted it on camera. She falsely accused Alan Dershowitz of having sex with her. Falsely accused Alan Dershowitz. Then later, suing each other, she withdrew saying, I may have been mistaken. I might have been mistaken. Bullshit. Might have been mistaken. The reality is that when it came to the discovery stage, she had not a shred of evidence that she ever met Dershowitz. And Dershowitz being who he is, he could probably trace his movements day to day back for the past 50 years. He's not only a appellate lawyer, an academic, a pundit, and all sorts of things. He said initially he wanted to see her in prison, but he became extremely magnanimous. Probably other things on his mind, especially with regard to the Middle East. But this woman's a grotesque liar. Sarah Ransom, another Epstein's winning whore, a grotesque liar. Now, Pam Bondi said that in Epstein's New York house, they found thousands of hours of videos of sex abuse. Didn't go into details, but from what I gather, it's Epstein being massaged by girls. That was taped. And also it appears to have been downloading child porn from the internet, which, I mean, presumably, off the dark web, presumably he didn't have anything to do with this, only just downloading it. But it's a serious offence to download this sort of stuff. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they're adamant that there's no Epstein list as such. There's people who knew Epstein, people who flew on the Lolita Express, and I agree with them keeping this thing under wraps. Tara Palmier has said that there will be prosecutions. There are powerful men who will be faced prosecution. Well, some powerful men have faced prosecution, and probably falsely. Certainly been smeared. Whitney Webb said that the big mystery about Epstein, the thing we should really be concerned about, is how he made his money. And the sexual thing is somewhat of a distraction. I tend to agree with her. Now, is this a cover-up? No. When the authorities carry out a thorough investigation and they find no evidence of abuse or of any sort of crime, what they do a lot of the times, especially if it's a sexual element, they suppress the names of the accused to protect the innocent. It may look like a cover-up because if nobody's charged, it might not be unreasonable to suspect there's a cover-up. But they say it's about all sorts of things. There's still people going on today about the Kennedy assassination, the cover-up. We know everything about the Kennedy assassination. There's absolutely no mystery. Oswald was the lone nut, And if it hadn't been for Jack Ruby assassinating him, it would have been, we wouldn't be talking about it now. Nobody would probably even remember the name of Lee Harvey Oswald. It'd just be a guy who assassinated the president. All sorts of other things look like they may be cover-ups, but they're not. Here we had the V.I.P. Paedophile Ring. Anyone remember that? It turned out to be a bloke named Cole Beach, who was making stuff up, who was himself been kiddie fiddling or downloading child porn. He's making stuff up about being abused by politicians and a senior soldier, and the police went along with it. There was claims that Edward Heath, who'd been dead for a decade or more, there were claims that he, the former Prime Minister, had been abusing boys, and a chief constable actually went out on a limb and lost his job over it, which stupid things. Anytime they backdate something, these people just make stuff up. We had the Elm Guest House case. There's the Elm Guest House List, which is complete bunk. Again, I'll put a link to this. Elm Guest House was a guest house in southwest London, and it was frequented by homosexuals. The owner and his wife were prosecuted. They were keeping a disorderly house, but they had a son who was neglected, and police carried out a thorough investigation. She died youngish from an insulin overdose, or it was either an overdose or failure to take her injection or whatever. It was classed as suicide. And years later, all these ludicrous stories of a bloke named Chris Fay drew up the Elm Guest House List. They claimed that Cliff Richard and all sorts of people had frequented the place. It's complete BS. We've seen all sorts of trawling operations of schools, boarding schools, institutions for kids. What happens is you'll be a member of staff will be accused of abuse, sexual abuse, perhaps a truthful allegation, and the police will come in, they'll look for paedophile rings and they'll find them. And corrupt lawyers, I'll put a link to my video about claim farming. They go looking for victims, survivors, call it what you want, and the people come forward making claims, and you get innocent people, teachers and social workers roped in and convicted at times. We had similar things. We had the nursery school panics in the United States. Was about Martin, other cases that spread to the UK. You had the Dr. Marietta Higgs and her partner. They were diagnosing kids as being sexually abused. That was the Cleveland child sexual abuse scandal. It spread to Germany as well. There was a case in France, been cases elsewhere, and it's a witch hunt mentality. I'm not saying that conspiracies of this nature don't exist. What I'm saying is that as far as Jeffrey Epstein is concerned, excuse the yawning, it's gone 3 AM. As far as Jeffrey Epstein is concerned, it was him and Ghislaine Maxwell, and he had female helpers. So who were these children trafficked to? Who were these, they talk children as though they were like 7 and 8 year olds. Trafficking is I'd say, is as a narrative. They were recruited for Epstein, and he paid them for their services. Donald Trump says now he didn't like the guy. Well, he's trying to distance himself from Epstein. This is the thing that people do. Prince Harry and his odious wife, one of their benefactors, has been accused of sexually abusing another man. This guy's brought a massive civil suit against him, and they've been silent. They haven't said anything about it, distanced themselves from him. People do this. Not all the time. Rolf Harris, after he was convicted, there were people rallied around him, people who knew him, fans, people close to him. At least one woman who was very close to work for him. She was a manager for him. And eventually, well, he died a free man. But other people have been less lucky. Max Clifford was deserted by everyone except his daughter, the tragic Louise Clifford, who died young, at the age of, I think, 51. And, some people are just hung out to dry, basically. This is the way media works, the way a lot of people, faux friends, they just don't want to know you when you've, even if you've done nothing wrong, things be pointed at you. And then if you're exonerated, they come crawling back. But I've had this myself, not in a sexual context, but back in the 1990s, when a lot of trouble with the odious Jerry Gable and company, and the police house, victim of a police witch hunt. And I found out who my true friends were then. Some people don't find out who their true friends are. Some people, they don't have true friends. But to cut this short, Ghislaine Maxwell, I think she's been treated very unfairly. And the women who claim to be victims, survivors, some of them were very well paid for their services. I think most of them were, and I don't think any of them really suffered any damage at all. And there may be a bigger story here if what Lady Victoria Harvey says about that infamous photograph being faked, and if it was really actually faked by Maria Farmer, who she may yet have something to answer for. Anyway, I'll let it go at that. Bear in mind, conspiracies do exist, including paedophile rings and sexual abuse gangs, but don't believe everything you hear. And if the authorities consistently come up with nothing, and there's no obvious skullduggery, as in the grooming gang case in Britain, the grooming gang scandal, it may be that the whole thing was just smoke and mirrors, or in this case just one depraved individual and his female helpers, including the late Virginia Giuffre.